Välkommen till årets andra Lindholmen Connected. En seminarieserie där vi träffar företagsledare, ministrar och andra ledande samhällsaktörer. Och idag har vi förmånen att få samtala med Ingenlath, VD för Polestar. Polestar har sitt ursprung i Volvo Cars prestandasegment men är idag ett elbilsvarumärke som har som ambition att förändra vårt samhälle. En minst sagt spännande transformationsresa. Och jag tänkte att jag skulle få prova den här bilen medan ni har ett samtal och lyssnar på Ingenlath. För att se vad den här bilen, en Polestar 2, som är en del av det som Polestar utvecklar och tillverkar, vad den går för helt enkelt. So with that short introduction, over to the studio and you, Anna.
Thank you, Tord, and drive safely now. And a warm welcome to all of you joining us here today at Lindholmen Connected. And of course, a special welcome to our guest in the studio, Ingenlath, CEO of Polestar. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mm-hmm. And it's very kind of you to lend your car as well to Tord.
I trust him fully there, yeah.
I can imagine. And I also want to mention that at the end, time permitting, we will have a look at the Q&A section, and hopefully we will be able to pick up a question or two for Thomas to answer at the end. But let's start off by looking into the future a bit, I was thinking. If you should visualize future mobility in, let's say, 10 years' time, what would you say about that?
Well, I think I definitely should emphasize that the future, I would imagine fully electric. That is, of course, what in 10 years' time I would believe has happened. Mobility that is absolutely on zero carbon emissions. And that not only in the private, but as well in the public mobility, and of course as well when it comes to all the goods deliveries, which of course will still be a major thing to achieve, all the trucks and stuff. So zero emission, a mobility that is, I would say, very diverse, because I don't like this scenarios or ideas about, oh, this or that will, disappear and this will take over. I think that is where the future is always, the future never looks that much like a revolution. The future is always an evolution, and there will be nuances that change. And over time that becomes, of course, a massive impact, but it's not that suddenly this or that disappears. I think the intelligent mixture is really the concept, and us getting away from this idea about doing the same thing every day, doing the journey to work every day with the same means of transport, doing our holidays always that type of get to the airport, and I mean a bit more of flexibility in your own mindset of how you plan your day. So therefore, you will need a big push in terms of what you would call connectivity. Yeah. I think I personally experienced such a big change when it was possible to just simply get an understanding how to get to this place with bus line number whatever, and it's leaving at just that these things are by now accessible in your phone, made even the same transportation time suddenly accessible again. And that type of intelligence and how things become connected and how you can easily plan and shift and share, for example, that will be the biggest revolution in this.
Smart solutions facilitating your life.
Absolutely. So, and that way, hopefully, of course, the landscape will change. And of course, I mean, I really have to work now on that idea that, of course, I'm not against cars, not at all. I'm absolutely pro cars. But I think every time in life. I mean, that's a principle. As soon as you have this overdose of something, for example, too many cars collecting somewhere, then it becomes a situation which is not bearable. So I think that is where, a car as a private owned means of transport, I think that's still very much what people will have, of course, in the future. But do I have to use it every day? And is that a bad thing? That I think we should really think about.
And maybe you can share it with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can share the technology which is in there with others, meaning a parked car at your home might not be a meaningless thing. It is actually very meaningful to the grid, and you providing with the big battery in your car a buffer for the electric grid in order to manage the shift towards sustainable energy has a meaningful purpose. So there again, intelligent solutions rather than dogmatic yes or no. I think that will really be the recipe for the future.
Interesting. And if we then look back a little bit, I was reading on your website that you say that passion and emotion drive us, and electricity and innovation drive our cars. That's a statement there. So how would you then, because Polestar has made quite a journey from, I mean, the Polestar racing and to where you are today. So maybe you could take us through this journey and the most important events along the way.
Yeah, well, that one sentence about passion and emotion drive us, I think that's really the red thread to our company. When it was shaped as a racing company, when it was founded as a company that was all about, going from one weekend to the next, improve the cars to win the race, this spirit is still very much vivid in the company, and therefore similar to what you could call a startup idea about really doing the sprints and being, it's you cannot work with this kind of long frames of time in half a year. No, you have to really 2 weeks. You really have to be like a race team, always improving all the time, and revisiting the concepts. Do they still hold? Having said that, of course, one of the big milestones in our history was when, after the launch of Polestar 1 and the first establishment of the company, and that car being, of course, very luxurious, very much emphasizing the innovative technology, but then with Polestar 2 really making that radical shift, turning that page and saying, okay, combustion engine was yesterday, we are an electric car company, and the Polestar 2 really made that shift, and we had to really then turn the heads of the last petrol heads in our company and really say, no, come on, this is now the future.
Was it a tough job?
Yeah, it had to be that had to be a very clear sign, and maybe tough for some people, but we were so ready for it. I mean, we had been preparing for this moment for such a long time. It felt really good to get there.
I can imagine. Anything else you're thinking about that stands out?
I mean, 2020 was an amazing year for a lot of reasons. After 4 or 5 years of preparation, and you could call it, all the theory, how do we do our go-to-market concept? Because it's not just about electric cars, it's about how you have a direct consumer business, how you actually need all the IT systems set up to be on a digital journey that is seamless. This is so radical for the car industry. That needs, of course, a lot of preparation, a lot of theory. But then the day you go live and you actually have customers direct connected to you, my God, you have to cope with that. And you might, just like getting a baby, you can prepare as much as you want. When it's there, then really the real thing starts, and you have to really get up to speed and make quick learnings and cope with situations, and we had a lot of stuff to adjust quickly in order to cater for that new real life. And then, of course, doing all that in a Corona times years was definitely a difficult hurdle on top of that. But yeah, it's of course great to see that we are now a real car brand, producing cars, delivering to customers, having passionate customers that can be very, very enthusiastic and of course giving good feedback, but of course as well customers who get very quickly as well angry if things are not working, and really making sure that this will be a good journey for all of us. So that has been very exciting last year, and as it is,
Sounds like it, yeah.
Of course, then immediately in this year it's all about the growth and getting into new markets. We have Europe, of course, with new markets coming. We are now in Denmark as well, in Finland and in Austria up and running. And then there is a big expansion in the US planned, many more spaces in the US. And at the same time, Asia Pacific, that was always one of the elements of Polestar, being a brand that has the possibility to expand globally in a fast way and almost simultaneously, because of course we can rely on certain logistics and infrastructure that's built with a big group and of course Volvo Cars.
Because you're looking at a footprint of about 20 markets more or less in the pretty near future, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And not then, I mean, each of the markets in itself, of course, has its own growth program here in Sweden. Now at the moment we're in Stockholm and Gothenburg, but of course we're looking as well, expanding that footprint here as well. And of course many service points which we have developed all the way up to the north.
It's a busy job. But when we look at also the area of electrification, I mean the challenges, both linked to electrification in general and also for Polestar, what would you identify there being the biggest ones?
Well, to start with, I have to explain. First 3 years, each and every interview I was going to, whoever I talked to, the big question in the room was electrification. Really? Do you really believe in that? Is that really something that you can build the company on? And then from one day to the other almost, it was really kind of 18 months ago when this died. That question was suddenly gone and everybody understood, yeah, this is going to happen, this is the future. You might discuss how fast the shift will be. Is it, over a period of 10, 7, 5 years, how quick will it go? But that the electric car, the electric mobility is what the whole sector will be changing to is by now fully accepted. And you see, I mean, each and every OEM is now putting big money into this shift, building even battery factories, which was never thought would be really meaningful. So all that has changed 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And now, finally, I mean, we were so much waiting for that, because that first step has to be accepted and happen before you actually look at the real elephant in the room, because electromobility doesn't help us per se. We need to get to CO2-free mobility, and this is not done with driving an electric car. You as a customer, as a consumer, you have to really make sure that you use it meaningful, charging it with green energy, otherwise it doesn't make a big difference. And us as the car company, we have to of course get cars on the road, electric cars, that has as little CO2 burden having been produced as possible. And that will be really the focus of the next 10 years. The shift to electromobility, yeah, that has to happen, I would say now almost automatically. And we have to take care now that these electric cars really come with a low CO2 footprint.
Because that is something you are communicating, that goal also, to create the first truly climate neutral car by 2030, right? So tell us a bit more about that then.
Yeah, it's we call this the moonshot goal. We know that, I mean, if you're not too deep in the subject, you might think, oh, okay, that's a goal, go for it. Actually, today we would not know how. It's something which is technically not solved yet. Certain elements within that journey, there's no answer today. Having said that, that's why it's 2030. We have time to develop and we have time to actually find the answers. But we cannot shy away and say, oh, that's impossible. No, it has to become possible. And that's why we call it the moonshot goal. Let's aim for it. Let's research and start. Rely on innovation, speeding up, being really exponential. Hopefully we will really make that very quickly, find the answers. And from where we are today, and an electric car, we were very publicly outspoken, we were transparent. This is the CO2 burden that a Polestar 2 leaves the factory with. And okay, it takes then, if you charge it with renewable energy, X kilometers till you actually have the positive relation to a combustion engine car. Of course, we want to make that, in the first step, you would halve it and say, come on, let's aim for half of this CO2 burden. And that already is a job.
Yeah.
It will be. But each and every gram below that will become more and more and more difficult. So really go to zero is a very tough goal. But
is it important then to just, to put those tough goals up there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then again, I mean, it's always, you will find that one pilot project that will make it, and then you have all the learnings to really follow with that. So that's really the aim for the next, let's say, 10 years, the next decade, to make that happen.
It's only 9 years.
Yeah, it's only 9 left now.
Yes.
But it's only I mean, that's for the car industry, the topic. But let's face it, it represents what really us as society have to manage. I mean, yeah, the car industry has to manage that. Us as a society have to manage to actually live a life on a zero balance.
Absolutely.
And that might be even more of a moonshot goal. Having said that, I'm much more optimistic about that. I think that we look upon it like, oh, it's so dramatic and difficult. And it might be difficult, but I don't see the drama in it, because actually I see an incredible opportunity in it. If you imagine how certain things happened overnight, and was it a big problem? I mean, good things like, suddenly smoking in a restaurant was not okay anymore. We were dreaming of that for a long time, and then suddenly, boom, there was a law, and guess what? It was okay, and people, stopped doing it. Same thing, I mean, now on a not so positive event, Corona times. I mean, who could have imagined that we could do all our business and stuff basically from one day to the other, from home office through Teams meeting and stuff. And I think that opened for many more people the idea, hey, change is possible. We can adapt. Human nature is actually quite good in adapting to situations. So why the hell could we not adapt to the necessity of having a zero emission industry society? Some change is necessary in your behavior, but it is much more about just simply installing and thinking about it the right way. Living, the houses getting into a much more energy efficient way of working. That's all, at the end of the day, more I call it now a sport. I mean, it's actually exciting to do so, and it's so. That's why emotion and passion. I think it's not really a too rational and just because you have to fulfill a certain norm on paper. Actually, it's something which can be really meaningful and really. A very emotional experience that we see so much with people driving our electric cars. I mean, if you would have told this very passionate people about cars that one day they would not be all getting excited anymore how fast they can go, but actually how they made a journey with only X or Y kilowatt consumption, and how that suddenly becomes the new thing. So
that's an interesting point, I think.
And we see that really happening. I mean, I see that myself.
Yes,
I mean, how I now start driving.
Yeah, I've seen it too. Absolutely. Interesting to listen to you, Thomas. And we talked about innovation, of course. It's like the red thread as well here. And you talked about before your interaction with the clients, with the customers. And you've done a sort of an innovative move there as well, when you've said goodbye to the traditional car dealerships with your spaces, with another kind of experience and so on. The reason behind that and
yeah, well, the business model, how the car industry worked so far, we just try to implement something that we feel is giving a better answer to how customer behavior is today. And customer behavior is very clearly shifted towards a digital research, you being informed as a customer by having done, actually, you could call it your homework, but it's beyond that. People are really experts, and they get all this and they do everything so much already at home. That's where us striving then to do the next step and really do the order and the purchase online, we had to find a way how the other element, which is the physical representation of the brand, the physical touch and feel with the product, the test drive, how this gets in harmony again. And therefore we found this model where, regardless whether if the customer has been to the Polestar space before he purchased the car, or even if he have never been in the Polestar space, the Polestar space is participating in a certain percentage in that purchase of the car. And the big conflict between digital and retail is healed and in harmony within our space concept. So we have our space investors, who mostly are here in Sweden, for example, entrepreneurs who run Volvo dealerships. They have the workshops, so they invest into a Polestar space and have then the benefit of wherever this customer has purchased his car, if he was in the space or not, they will have their participation in the earnings of that. So that's, I think, a very, very good way of catering that kind of modern behavior of a customer who actually does a lot online, even this very heavy but then private decision to really do the purchase there. But of course they want to go and touch and feel the product. And we see that so often, I mean, how many shops in town have the problem that people, they come and touch and feel and even try, but then they go home and buy online. That is not healthy. This will not work over time. So that, I think, is really a model which we established, which will be much better catered for this future.
That's an interesting concept, definitely. You talked a little bit about this with the behavior change and so on, and I'm thinking about, brand loyalty wise. when you see behaviors change, eventually in the future, shared mobility, smart solutions, etc. We touched upon that briefly before, but how will that affect brand loyalty, you think?
Well, we have to get used and be happy with an intelligent customer. We cannot be believing that a customer, falls in love with a brand, or because the parents or whatever and the social environment, this is what you drive and this is what you own. I think people are much more intelligent in how they do their choices. And that might incorporate that you actually are a bit more flexible in how you choose your stuff. Having said that, I very, very much believe in the power of a brand and in the strengths and what really matters. And there I always say, talking about Polestar, the value we create over a long period. It's not that we are an electric car brand, that we use this or that technology, that we have this or that. Yeah, of course, the Google system inside is important. Yes, this direct concept. But things will change over time. Technology might change. What matters is the value that you create over a period like 50, 100 years is the value of the brand, what you represent, what spirit, what kind of mindset, what community you build with this. So therefore, I definitely believe that there is this community, that spirit, that you create a community around the brand that is loyal to your brand.
I think you got a point, definitely. And talking about creating value, for example, we're sitting here in the at Lindholmen Science Park, so the heart of the automotive cluster, right? So I was thinking, what about the areas that are driven within this cluster? What do you think what could be an important role for Lindholmen Science Park to drive onwards, to keep creating and a positive, innovative power for Sweden?
Well, I'm of course very happy that Gothenburg has established this, that we have the opportunity to actually come and meet and have this incredible good collection of established brands, new initiatives. This very old-fashioned way of, as a big car company, having suppliers and you kind of work with your suppliers, and that is something that from the very beginning we said, come on, having on one hand real, of course, business relations, and still having a collaborative way of working is one thing we embrace. Not being at all fixed to the standard set of people that you look at. No, for example, having suddenly development together with Google was a very big thing, but suddenly you had this really, really big partner there. At the same time, having brands that just simply are on a very similar journey and just having exchange about how they experience certain steps. Being always brand friends with Cake, for example, in Stockholm. Having, of course, now Dennis joining us, who has been here with Nuity. And of course, this is an incredible, fruitful chemistry. And you see that in the US, where exactly this type of seeding a certain spirit and bringing this colorful life there together, it's incredibly great for our development. I think that is really only the beginning, and we can do that in a much broader sense. It will make the whole town and everything so much more colorful, getting the universities really tightly integrated in that. It has been done in the past in ways that were fine and suiting the old times, but of course it has moved on, and we have to find new formats and new ways of creating that type of fruitful atmosphere that really brings. And I have to say, Sweden is generally, me coming as a foreigner here, is actually good at that. This openness to innovation, that openness to embracing modern technology as something that can be really, really exciting, and that definitely I've felt is much more alive here and is practiced. I think that helps absolutely the economy and the society to be, for example, so much more prepared for our digital life. That, I have to say, is definitely from the country where I come from, Germany, where you still discuss, should we have a digital passport or whatever, or the question of having a Personnummer is like highly political discussed, where I think, my God, come on, of course.
But we hear those comments a lot from, within the international context, definitely. So
sometimes I read in a German newspaper about it, and I think, my God, guys, you should not be so judgmental. It's actually an incredible good spirit and mindset for the future. And you see that now. When we talk about the vaccination passport, of course, this has to be in the digital arena. You cannot run around with yellow papers.
No, definitely not. So I hope we get it pretty soon. Looking forward to seeing the back of this pandemic. I was thinking, looking at the clock, time's ticking, but I would just like to see if we could take one question from the audience. That would be great. And I hope that you'd like to stay on with us for 1 minute more. I've got one question here coming up on the screen from one of our participants. When can we connect Polestar into our summer house's energy system to charge the car with solar cell energy during the day and then watch TV in the evening with the electricity from the car's battery? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a project that we actually have initiated and working with the university together to actually, the idea of a bidirectional charging in a way that it's not only energy possible to get into the car, but as well to get out. This idea is, of course, I would not say old, but that's not something that we invented. But to really research now how that in practical life can work and how you actually execute that, that's exactly the research that we are doing now over the next course of months and year. And indeed, the technology in our next cars coming is prepared for it. So these cars will be bidirectional chargeable. But then again, before that then actually is privately usable, that step that we still have to really define a bit better and become a bit more experienced in how this can then safely work. But that's the future. That's absolutely what...
You are on the case. You're on the case. Okay. Okay, we need to sum this up a little bit. Thank you so much, Thomas, for being here with us today. It's been a privilege having you here.
Thank you so much.
We do hope to see you here soon again, of course. Polestar being involved in some of the development projects here, maybe. We've got a little thing here, a key for you, so you will actually access our open arena. The perfect place.
I earned it today.
Yes, you earned it today in gold.
Excellent.
That's
Thank
where
you
you
so
should
much.
schedule your, once you can start having, like physical meetings again, or digital ones up here, of course. That will take you there. And also a book about the history of Lindholmen Science Park. It's in Swedish, but I think you managed that too.
That would be a good lesson.
Yes, sure. So enjoy
Great.
that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you ever so much. And now I guess you would like to get your car back.
That would be appreciated.
That would be appreciated.
Do you think it's still in one piece?
We'll have to see. So Tord, hur går det för dig? Är du på väg tillbaka nu med bilen? Vi tackar härifrån i alla fall.
Hej Anna, ingen fara. Vi är alldeles strax tillbaka. Vi ska svänga in här mot Lindholmen. All right, ingen panik. Vi är snart tillbaka. Och vi är faktiskt snart tillbaka med ett nytt Lindholmen Connected. Den 5 oktober ses vi igen. Missa inte det.